Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to today's episode of Sedat HR Digest, where we discuss relevant topics on people and organizations. Sedat HR Digest is brought to us by Sedat Consult. You can contact Sedat Consult on 0244 629245, 0244 629245 for all your people and organizational needs. Today's episode promises to be very insightful and it's going to be very interesting. But before I introduce my guest to you, we want you to drop your name and your location in the comment box. Wherever you are watching us from, please drop your name and that location. We want to acknowledge you, and we also want to encourage you to share the link to your friends, loved ones, policymakers in your organization. Let them listen, let them learn. It is a platform where we learn together. Like I always said, we learn, unlearn, relearn. And so you don't want to take yourself out of today's episode. And like I said, I have a good news for you. Today, Sedat HR Digest is 1 year. We want to say congratulations to all of us. And we are super excited for the past year you've been with us. You've been tuning in, watching us, listening, contributing to this program. And we are a year old because you are always with us. And so a very big thank you to you for being with us. I also want to say a very big thank you to the CEO of Sedat Consult, Madam Patricia Kisi, for this vision. Thank you so much. We are very, very grateful for this vision. Indeed, it's impacting a lot of lives. Today, we are talking about creating and maintaining corporate culture that helps to drive productivity. Okay, and I have a very good friend and brother who is going to help us discuss this topic. I know a lot of us hear about culture, corporate culture, and we just don't know how to go about it. But today we are happy to have in the studio an expert in this field. He's very passionate when it comes to talking about organizational culture, not just talking about it, but making sure that it is impacting positively in our workplaces. All right, so David Mills is a senior executive in the oil and gas downstream business, a management consultant with experience in managing large-scale projects for C-suite officers, corporations, and government agencies. He is a member of the Africa Lists, A-Lists, all right, the community of senior executives in some of Africa's growth markets. David is a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants, Nigeria, and currently serves as the head of human resources at Petrosol Ghana. Hi, David. Thank you for joining us today on Sedat HR Digest. It's an honor to have you, especially when we are celebrating 1 year today. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you today.
Great. Thank you very much, Pat. It couldn't have been a better time to be part of this conversation, especially on its 1 year anniversary. So I'm very touched and humbled to have been your guest on your 1 year anniversary. Thanks for having me.
Right, Dave. Okay, so before we go to we start our conversation, I'd like to go to the comment section. Michael Kisi, thank you so much. Michael is watching us from Cape Coast. Salamat is watching us from Kumasi. Thank you, Salamat. It's been 1 year and you keep watching Sunday after Sunday. And I was super excited that we met at the HR conference. Thank you so much, Salamat. We have Richard Abrakwa watching us from Techiman. Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much. I know there are a lot of you watching us. Please drop your name, drop your comment. It's our anniversary, and so we want to acknowledge you. You've been so supportive. You've been with us this past year. We want to say a very big thank you to you, Michael. Thank you. 1 year of watching and listening and participating in Sedat HR Digest. We are very, 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 very excited. All right, Dave, are you ready for me?
Yes, I am.
All right. So we are looking at creating and maintaining corporate culture to drive productivity. And so first of all, I want you to give us an understanding of what corporate culture is and why is it important for organizations to pay attention to their culture.
All right. So first, let me say a good afternoon or good evening, wherever you may find yourself, to your avid listeners. Conversations like this are very important in helping to one, get clarity on our understanding of HR principles and practices, but even more important, to also help us to shape the profession better, because we know that HR is at the epicenter of every organizational setup. You can't run organizations without people and processes, and that's where we come in. So our work, in essence, is very crucial to the success of every organization. So, so back to your question, I think culture is perhaps one of the most often and talked about topical issues in HR. Everybody assumes that they have a culture or they have a certain culture in the organizations. And so often the conversations about culture doesn't come up so strongly. And that's because it appears to be a default, setup or setting. We all have a certain kind of culture in organizations. Peter Drucker gave a very profound definition of culture when he says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. In other words, every organization runs on the fuel of strategy. So we all have visions and goals and objectives. That is, aspirations we seek to achieve. How we achieve those aspirations or goals or objectives are hinged on strategy. So you can simply say that the vision or the goal or the objective is the what, the strategy is the how. Now, you cannot get to a place if you don't have a clear how to get in there. So sometimes it appears many organizations don't become great, not because they don't have visions, but they lack proven time-tested strategies for actualizing those visions. Now, in order for your strategy to also materialize, you need to align those strategic initiatives with culture. Now, culture, like they say, is how we do things here. And it is an amalgamation of behaviors, thought patterns, actions, principles, and examples. The aggregate of all of these things from the people in the organization, wherever they find themselves, forms the culture. But this is the problem. Culture is more externally driven than it must be internally driven. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So often organizations sit down and say, our culture is this, or we have this kind of culture. We have a can-do culture, and so on and so forth. When you audit the culture, what you find is a disconnect between what they say the culture is and what the culture actually is. And that is because we often fail to, and I'm saying that it is part of why most strategies don't get actualized, because strategy is lived every day. You break it down into tactics and actions. And if the behaviors, the thought patterns, the principles, and the actions of the people are in direct disagreement with the strategy you have laid out, then you don't achieve the strategy. So it's important for organizations and especially for leaders to understand that you can't have an effective strategy without having a clear-cut culture supporting the strategy. Now, and I'm saying that strategy culture is more externally driven than internally driven. This is what I mean by that. So again, I'll quote a statement by Dave Orich. So Dave Orich is one of the foremost thinkers when it comes to HR management. Perhaps, in fact, he's been referred to as the father of modern day HR management. So a lot of concepts and models in HR are attributable to his thinking. So HR business partnering, HR centers of excellence, HR operating model, shared service, all those models that we use in HR are attributable to his thinking. Now, Dave Orich maintains that culture is not how we do things here, but how the customer wants us to do things here. So, Pat, I'll end here and then we can proceed.
Right. It's the culture is not how we do things here, but how the customer wants us to do things here. And you cannot have an effective strategy without culture. Thank you very much, Dave. And so talking about, I mean, you've given us, you've made us understood what culture is. Now, if an organization wants to pay attention to culture, what consideration should they pay attention to? Some people don't even know how to go about it at all. Can you help us understand how they should start, and then also the considerations that has to be paid attention to?
Great, thank you. So I think it dovetails into the last point I made, that culture is more externally driven than internally influenced. Now, we have to understand that there are, you see, the things that drive organizations, the things that make organizations great are not the hard things. And I'm not saying this because I'm an HR practitioner. The finance people may or will disagree. The marketing people may or will disagree, but it is fact. You see, fact is fact. Fact is not an opinion. It's something that is. You can disagree with it. It's just like disagreeing with the gravitational principle. In as much as you throw, or as long as you throw an object into the air, it comes down. That's fact. It's a principle. Now, there are four things or four key drivers, and maybe your viewers can put some of these things down to help them. There are four key drivers that builds enduring and successful organizations over the long haul. The first is talent. I'm yet to meet any organization that is great that doesn't attract great talents. And this is the work of HR. I'm bringing to your attention how critical and important the HR profession is. We may not get the respect we want at the table because the conversations are often not HR centered. We may not get the attention we want because the CEO may be more finance or marketing biased. But I'm saying that we make organizations great. Whether we are acknowledged or not, let's have this clarity of understanding and do our work as such. So first, talents. The second thing is culture. You see, so a very good example of culture is, let's say, a fish. If you take a fish survives in an ecosystem, which is water. If you take the fish out of water, it begins to suffocate. With time, it dies. So no matter how great, useful, and relevant the fish is, once it is brought out of its defined, natural, relevant ecosystem, which is water, it begins to underperform, becomes irrelevant, and it becomes extinct. We have a crucial task, and I'll answer your question, but I'm just laying the foundation. We have a crucial task for building the culture blocks that will engage and retain talent. Because if you bring in a high-performing talent and you don't have the right culture to maintain this talent, you lose the talent. Because it's a talent war. McKinsey wrote about it in way back 97, and it has remained so since. Organizations are on a hunt for talent. I'm looking for 2 roles in my organization. You know, fiercely competitive, but sometimes too, it is difficult to get the right people in. So first, talent. 2, culture. 3 is leadership. Again, if you bring in these talents, and especially the millennials and Gen Zs who are very, very slippery, you've got to have the right leadership systems in place. Right leaders who are providing coaching, guidance, mentoring, and support for these young ones to succeed. The SWOT command control management mechanisms does not support the new generation of workforce we are seeing at the workplace. So there has to be a relearning of leadership thinking and leadership behavior. Even more important, HR has to set the tone for senior leadership or management members to live by example. You see, it's not enough for us to keep telling people what to do. We've got to act what we want them to do. Because people don't do what you tell them to do, they do what they see you do. This is a problem many organizations have. So they have a certain intolerant level of indiscipline that affects organizational success, fundamentally because the leadership that is provided in the organization is not modeled on example. So the leaders tell the people that do this, but they do otherwise. Now, what you'll find happening is that the people will do what they are seeing you do. So again, HR has to set the tone for the right leadership behavior. And we have to be very quick, very, very quick in calling people who are not living those leadership behaviors to order. Whether it is the CEO, we have to do so respectfully, but unapologetically. Because you see, culture is not owned by HR. HR doesn't own culture. I know culture sits on our KPI, but we don't own culture. I'll explain. Culture is owned by the CEO and line managers. HR shapes culture. So one of the gateways to corporate culture is a CEO's personality and behavior. If you enter an organization, and if you're a culture analyst, if you meet the CEO of the organization, you can tell the kind of culture they have in the organization. If the CEO is a pressure-driven CEO, you see a culture of pressure. Everything is urgent, and people are always, on the run. If you have a CEO who is laid back, laissez-faire, you have a very laissez-faire, carefree, everything go culture. But there's also a second tier of players who influence culture, and often this is at the departmental or unit level, which are the line managers. So if you have a line manager who carries a certain thinking, he brings that thinking to bear on the department's work, and that can create a certain subculture within the department or unit. So you can have a corporate culture influenced by the CEO and SLT members. I'm talking about senior leadership team members, but you can also have subculture sitting at departments and units, depending on the line managers you have. This is where HR comes in to shape the culture, to make sure that the culture is aligned. So what we have at the corporate level cascades down to departmental and unit levels. It's an assiduous task, but it's one we have to embrace and work on every day. It's an everyday task. Shaping culture is an everyday task, right from querying people who come to work late. And you see, this is where, again, HR is seen to be petty. It's not about pettiness. The reason I will query somebody for coming to work late is not because you were late. It's because of the principle of indiscipline and misalignment with company policy. Because if you can come to work late, then you can steal 500,000 Ghana cedis. It's principle. If you compromise ethical values by not coming to work late coming to work on time as agreed, you can as well steal. So the principle is the same. The actions may be different, but the principle fundamentally is same. So, like I said, Pat, we need to go outside. So we have to drive culture from outside in. We need to look at what do customers want here, because you see, businesses don't exist for themselves.
Yeah,
we are slaves to the customer. So it's what the customer wants that we do. Now, one of the formidable successes of the UT story was because of the kind of culture they had at the start of the company. So this alone in 48 hours or alone in whatever they called, it was as a result of exactly. It was as a result of customer expectations. What were the expectations of customers in the market? At the time, banks were frustrating people who were seeking for loans and credit support. So UT saw a lacuna in the market and said that, you know what, if we can respond to the customer's needs in record time, we are in business. So the culture and the processes that were put in place at UT was geared towards responding to the customer's pain point. So we have to, and here HR has to work with the commercial unit to understand what does the customer want us to do as a company. If the customer wants us to respond to issues on time, it means we need speed. So speed can be a value. Now, what we then come internally to do is to now define what speed means. If the customer doesn't want us, so I am in the petroleum downstream business. One of our biggest challenges is being cheated at the pump. We all buy fuel. Sometimes you feel that you've been cheated genuinely. So we have a mantra to say that we provide clean fuel in full quantity. Part of that, in order to deliver on that, we have to have a value that speaks to integrity. You see? So this integrity is not internally driven, it is externally influenced based on the customer's pain point. Then we come in and say, okay, the customer wants us to be people of integrity. What then does integrity mean? This is HR's work to define integrity. And then it is communicated across the organization so that people know that we believe in integrity because this is what it means here. And then we uphold people, or we hold people accountable to it. Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Dave. So Salamat says that we just started and I'm already enjoying it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Salamat. Keep your comments coming in. If you have any question, any clarification you want to seek, please type it in the comment section. We'll read it out for our resource person to respond to it. And we want you to know that culture is owned by the CEO and line managers. HR comes in to shape the culture, and that this is coming from David. And so if you're an HR practitioner, please know that you are in to shape the culture, and there's a lot you need to do. Now, let's go back to our conversations. Now, Dave, what strategies can organizations employ to ensure that their culture aligns with their productivity goals?
Yeah, so I think I probably have mentioned a few in my earlier submission, but I'll recap. So how do we ensure we align culture with productivity? And that's key, because like I said, there are some drivers of organizational success. So I spoke about talent, spoke about culture, spoke about leadership. Maybe the fourth is technology. You know, today you can't be a relevant organization without employing technological tools, whether it's AI, whether you are automating your systems to free up space and time to be more strategic and to be more productive, whatever it is that you can do to free up time, so you can do more. Is basically driven by technology. So these four things are important. Now, like I said, the first thing you can do with culture is to define it. You have to define culture. So I want to hear connect values, core values, and perhaps every organization has a set of core values. I want to connect core values to culture. And I'll use my company as an example. So when I joined, and because I've consulted widely, I'm very much aware that often employees have a difficult time, one, knowing their company's core values. In fact, it starts from the vision and mission. These days, the conversation has. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dave.
Can I
Yeah,
be
we
heard?
can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So these are the conversations, is shifting a bit because we are realizing that this whole vision mission thing can be confusing. So the new thinking, and probably not too new in management, is that let's fuse the two and call it purpose. One such person who did that is Indra Nooyi when she was at PepsiCo. In fact, if you check Microsoft has a purpose that says that to empower every person on the planet, every person or organization on the planet to do more or to achieve more. This is their purpose, And so that is a new thinking, marry vision, because people sometimes can't remember. They can't even articulate it. And for me, that's a problem because productivity first starts with a mindset. If people don't have a clear understanding of where we are going to, if the direction is not clear to people, then they work anyhow. There's tons of case study to support how when people have a clear understanding of the direction of the organization, they do better work. So I think that we need to merge vision, mission, and create a sense of purpose. What purpose does is that it energizes the employee base. Now, after that, you now need to look at your core values. And I'm saying that those core values often sometimes also are not clearly defined. So at Petrosol, for instance, When I joined, I realized that most people couldn't, articulate the core values as I expected. Per my engagement. So I looked at the core values and said, okay, how can I rearrange these core values and make it sound like an acronym? And people often don't forget acronyms, So I looked at it and said, okay, I think I can draw out an acronym that simply says that re-equip. So the first RE stands for respect for environment. The second is empathy. The QU stands for quality service. I stands for integrity, and P for professionalism. So once we had this acronym, once the acronym is simple, people now can remember. So if they remember the acronym and the alphabets in the acronym, they can be able to remember the core values. Now, the core values, which are the required behavior, and I remember I said that culture is an aggregation of mindsets, perceptions, behavior, principles, actions. Now, core values, what core values do for you is that they set the behavioral tone for the organization. So when we say we believe in integrity, it means here we don't accept bribe. We don't give bribe as well. That is the right behavior here. So if you accept bribe, it means that you are an outcast. So as a matter of fact, the basis upon which most employees are fired is because of misalignment with values. I can't repeat this more. I'm saying that the one of the cardinal reasons why most employees get fired is because of misalignment with core values. So we say we don't take bribes, yet you go and take bribe, we'll fire you. We say we don't cheat customers, you cheat customers, we will fire you, you're a thief. Because where we are going, you are not going there. Your direction is at variance with our direction. So once we define the core values, now the core values help us to know what is acceptable behavior here. Now, as we keep living those behaviors, we are building a culture. You see, so now the core values will now lend credence, will support the creation of a certain culture. And if you want to take it a notch further, like I said, you can look at your customers' pain points and see what do customers actually want us to do. So if the customers say that, you know what, we want you to be quick as a business, what it means is that we need to build a culture of speed and of efficient execution. So you now come to define a culture. So at Petrosol, we also sat down and looked at our core values, our customers' pain points, and said, okay, what culture do we want here? And how does the core values we have support this culture? So we said, we want a culture, one, of learning. We want a culture of accountability. Because you see, if you have a core value of integrity, you have to hold people accountable. So we said number 2, number 3, we said excellent execution. Because in our space, you can't make mistakes. So for instance, when you get to the pump, there are 2 nozzles. One is diesel, one is petrol. If an attendant makes a mistake, if your car is a petrol car and he lifts the diesel nozzle and pumps diesel into your car, we're proud. You see? So excellent execution. There can't be mistakes at the pump. There can't be mistakes because it's costly. You mess up people's engines, you destroy their cars. Then last but not least, we said we have a culture of high productivity or high performance. So again, it was simple to put this into an acronym, which says LEAP. So a culture of learning, a culture of excellent execution, a culture of accountability, and a culture of high performance. So in Petrosol, we have something we say that we are re-equipping so that we can leap. you know. So our core values are helping us to re-equip. And as we are re-equipping, we are leaping. So these are some ways, you see, and much as it sounds very subtle and soft, I'm saying that these are the things that creates great organizations. Steve
Mm.
Jobs used it at Apple. Satya Nadella is doing it at Microsoft. Indra Nooyi did it at PepsiCo. You know, Jack Welch did it at General Electric. This is how you build great organizations. Thank you.
This is how we build organization. Interesting conversation, insightful one, of course. Thank you very much, David. And David has mentioned that if you want to strategize, you want to align your culture with your productivity goals, you need to define what culture is to you. You need to define your core values. You need to integrate your vision and mission to create purpose. And David said that at his place, he came up with an acronym, and I also have same at my place. Ours is PAC. So passion, accountability, and customer centricity. So if
Wow.
you are not living our values, we say you are not packing. All right. So we are here to learn. We are learning together, and I believe wherever you are watching us from, you are also learning. And I think today I've learned one thing from David. I'm going to come up with an acronym for our culture, so that when I meet him and he's saying his, I will be able to say mine. Now, talking about HR shaping or HR coming in to shape culture. I know David has said a lot of things, but I want him to help us with some of the things that HR practitioners can do to shape or to help shape the culture in their organizations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pat. So I think number one, we need to align the organization in terms of what is expected of people. Okay. So one way to do that is to look at the performance management system or processes. So we need to ensure that the goals or objectives are set smart and set right. It's a very difficult and quite a very laborious task, but it's worth it, in the sense that if you don't set the goals right, when it comes to appraisal, you have difficulties because then people begin to shift the goalposts because the goal wasn't wasn't goaling. So once the goal is not goaling, then they'll shift it. So we need to help the organizations, especially departments, line managers, heads of departments, set the goals right. Number two, we have to embed the core values in the performance appraisal systems. So it's important that people are appraised not just on their targets or objectives, but also on the core values. Because when you set goals for them, you are telling them what to achieve. The core values define how to achieve what you want them to achieve. It's not enough to have people exceed their commercial objectives but cheat the system in the process. So you can have a salesperson who exceeds his targets and the company claps for him. He wins several awards and accolades. But when you drill down, he's selling unethically. What he's doing is injurious to the company's brand long term. So you want to make sure that you are appraising people not just on their objectives or targets, but also on the values. So that's another way. The third thing is to hold management members accountable. You see, as HR, we are gatekeepers, we are watchdogs, and we are custodians of purpose, vision, and strategy. So it's important to hold management, and leadership starts from the top. It starts from the top. A fish becomes, or begins to rot from the head. So once the leadership behavior sitting at the top stinks, it will cascade through the organization, and soon it will create a certain monstrous culture that would put the organization down. So if you see the CEO do something that is at variance with the right behavior, have a conversation with the CEO. That's why you are there as HR. Have a conversation and let the CEO know that, Chief, you know what? Anything you do, you set precedents. And if the precedent is wrong, you are creating a problem for the organization. It is up to him to listen or not, but you have to offer that opinion, that objective, impartial opinion. You owe him that. Number two, you also have to hold other management members accountable. So if the head of finance is doing something wrong, unethical, cutting corners, not procuring right, not adhering to procurement processes, bring these matters up. And if it's possible, ask for a conversation with the CEO and demand answers. That's your work as HR, because if you don't correct these behaviors at the top, then there's actually no moral courage on the part of those who are doing it at the top to ensure that those beneath them don't do same. So these are very important things that as HR practitioners we can do and we must do in order to shape the culture of the organization right. Because when you keep quiet in the midst of these wrongdoings, you have supported the creation of that terrible culture that comes eventually to hunt everybody.
When you keep quiet in the midst of those wrongdoings, you have supported the culture of wrongdoing, and you don't want to be noted for that. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be asking Dave to tell us or help us understand how technology is contributing to the modern culture of today's workplace. All right, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back from the break. That's a Sedat's HR Digest, and today we are discussing creating and maintaining corporate culture to drive productivity. Our resource person is David Mills, the senior executive or head of human resource. Head of Human Resources at Petrosol Ghana. David is also an author. I'm sure when we are done, we will let him talk a little about his book. And I have a copy, a very insightful one, and I'm sure you would love to have a copy as well. All right, so I want to go straight to the comments. Have some few comments coming in because of our time. I'll read some. So Michael says, powerful and top class resource person. Whoa, thank you very much, Michael. If you just join us, that's a Sedat HR Digest. Once again, we are discussing how to create or creating and maintaining corporate culture to drive productivity. My resource person is David Mills, the head of human resources at Petrosol Ghana. Right, Dave. So before we went on break, I promised our viewers that when we come back, we would know or would want you to explain to us about the role that technology plays when it comes to creating today's culture or the modern day culture. So can you help us understand how technology or how does the technology contribute to the development and the maintenance of a modern culture that enhances productivity?
Great. I think in many ways, and thankfully, because of AI, whether you like it or not, you've got to embrace technology. I've done some research in the technology space, and I realized that often Africa is about 15 to 20 years behind technological innovations. It's pathetic. So I'll give an example even in our own HR space. So this HR business partnering model, and I've had the privilege of working as a consultant with many organizations. Many organizations still struggle to effectively implement the HRBP model. And it's fundamentally because, you know, people want to treat HRBPs as HR operations people. We have to understand the three-legged nature of HR. You see, so you have HR operations. This is the day-to-day stuff we do in HR. So leave administration, loan administration, filing, memos, and all those things. Then you have the business partner. So this business partnering or this business partner is supposed to work with the commercial units to be able to drive superior talent engagement and high performance. So this guy is a commercial person, and he engages on talent acquisition, talent optimization, culture, performance. So he does a lot of one-on-one coaching sessions. He's working with, if you have a retail unit, he's working with the retail guys to make sure that targets are being achieved. He's asking questions as to, do we have the right people? Are you sure that they are delivering on objectives? He's looking at the performance appraisals. He's asking questions why this person is not delivering his targets, but the person is still working after so many months. He's putting people on PIP. So he's an HR guy, but his focus is on commercial objectives to make sure that the company achieves its commercial targets. Then you have the center of excellence. This is where you create a special hub for, as it were, for either building high potential talents and so on and so forth. So these are the three ambits or arms of HR, if you like, in terms of HR organization. Now, the point I'm making is that we are often behind because if you take the HRBP model, Dave Ulrich wrote a book called HR Champions in 97. But 97, not 2017, 97. And advocated for the HR business partnering model. This is like 25 years ago. Africa and most Ghanaian companies, I'm saying till date, I stand to be corrected, but I left consulting actively about 2.5 years ago. We're still struggling to implement effectively the HRBP model. So often we catch up late. But thankfully, and I think we had heard about AI not today, but right now our hands are forced to embrace it. And it's a good thing. Now, how do we ensure? So what technology simply does is to ease life. That is the purpose. That's the overarching purpose of technology. So whether you are using Skype, whether you're using Zoom, whether you're using Microsoft Teams, or the entire 365 suite, or Google, whatever, you are simply simplifying life. You are making life a little bit more easy for you. And I think it helps, especially knowing that the generation of workforce we have, I call them soft life generation, the Gen Zs. But do you have some of them in your workplace?
In fact, my workplace, we are millennials and Z's, so you can tell what is happening over here. A lot of them. I mean,
So I call them soft life generation, the Gen Zs. They are very interesting people too. But I enjoy working with them, But
I'm
so
sure
so
one of these days we'll have a conversation around the various levels of generations we
yes,
have
yes.
at the workplace, and
Correct,
one of
correct,
these days
correct.
we'll do that.
Yeah. So basically, and restricting myself to just AI. You see, if you want to write a lengthy memo and you can deploy AI chatbots to do it for you, why not? What this helps, you see, is to ease
and free up time that you would have otherwise used for uh, equally important tasks. But now you have extra time to commit to more important things. Productivity is simply measured by what you do and the time within which you do it. So if you can do more within less time, you have been more productive. In other words, you have been efficient. And technology brings that efficiency to bear. So I think that, first, let's look at deploying technology in many facets. So we are going on an ERP revolution as a company. We have engaged a consultant to help us to procure an ERP solution that helps us to even align the ERP. Because we also have, as a company, we are regulated by the National Petroleum Authority, and they have a software they have deployed at our filling stations, volumes, and so on and so forth. So what we are doing with this ERP is to look at how we can integrate that, with the NPA software, so that we can get data in real time, which data we can analyze and take informed management decisions on the go. So if you embrace technology from all frontiers, one, it helps you to ease processes. You enhance the flow of communication. I don't need to drive to the office to have certain kinds of meetings. In the comfort of my home, right on Zoom or Teams, we can schedule meetings, and these meetings are very fruitful and productive. You know, so I think that these are tools that have come to stay and are very helpful. The concern for me is embracing it, you see, and tweaking our mindset to realize that this is the new world order. Whether you like it or not, technology has come to. The next wave is machine learning. And I keep saying that, you see, we have to start taking people back to software schools. Everybody, right from the CEO to the gatekeeper, to learn how to code. Because there will come a time where everything will be in coded language.
Yeah.
We will get there. It's not true. You see, I like I'm saying, with the trends that I know, I thought AI will be fully embedded in our world of work in Africa, probably 5-7 years from now. But it's here now. So something will force our hands, like COVID did. Something will force our hands to embrace new working models, whether it's virtual flexibility, AI. Something will shape the world of work. But we need to be agile in terms of mindset and embrace this new thinking and run with it as a company.
Right, we need to embrace technology, embrace AI, embrace machine learning, and run with it. Like David said, we thought it will come in some years to come, but we have it here, and we need to embrace it. Thank you very much, Dave. Now, talking about, there are a lot of people that have the desire, or a lot of these leaders want to ensure that they have a culture that is driving productivity, a positive environment. I mean, talking about their values and all that. But oftentimes, when they try to make this move, you receive resistance from the other side. Can you walk us through some of the challenges or the potential challenges that organizations face in trying to make sure that their culture aligns with their productivity goals, or culture is working in their environment, and how should they go about to address these challenges?
Well, great question. Great question, Pa. So first, I think people are creatures of habit. People like to do things a certain way. And nobody also likes to be held accountable. I mean, this is really fact. No matter how people say, oh, I like feedback, really, nobody really likes feedback. The moment you are giving people feedback, their body language changes. They become more defensive and resistant.
Absolutely,
We need to find
absolutely.
creative ways to go about it, though. Now, these challenges are often with behaviors, with a kind of culture. And you see, I always say that culture has to be created intentionally. Whether you are intentional or about it or not, you have a culture. So we all have a certain kind of culture, whether we know it or not. When you have a default culture, a culture you have built on autopilot. Now, shaping that culture and being intentional about it means that you are going to fight behaviors. You are going to deal with egos. You are going to hurt people. You are going to confront poor, stinking habits, and people will fight you. People don't like change, except for two reasons. Either they are the proponents of it, so they're the one championing the change, or there is something directly in it for them. Now, this is where we come in. We need to understand that shaping culture is a change management act. It's a change management process. In change management, one of the cardinal things HR professionals do is to communicate. So you need to have a business case for this change agenda. Why is there the need to change this culture we have? And I've said that it has to be linked to external demands. What do the customer, or what does the customer want? So if the customer is the one speaking, then you employee, you have to obey, because we say customer is king. So if the customer says that this is the culture I want, we simply have to align. So that business case helps. Number two, you need to identify across departments and units what we call change champions, and this is known to all of us. These people are people who are less resistant to the idea. You have to look out for them, bring them over, and take them through training, build their capacity, engage them. You see, once people, your objective is to win them over. If people are a part of something, they have a moral obligation to make the thing work. So people don't stand against things that they are a part of. So once you bring them on your side and you enlighten them on the prospect of this change, the benefit to the organization, because you see, as leaders, and I've always maintained the stance that as HR people, we don't make people happy, we make them better. Maybe I'll leave this for another day, Pat, because it's a very controversial conversation. But fundamentally, what I'm saying is that we need to ensure that people understand why this change is beneficial to all of us. Once you bring them in, you now release them to go back, because sometimes, you see, not even the CEO carries the most influence in terms of dealing with everybody. Everybody submits to a particular person for a reason. And in departments and units, sometimes the head of department may not even be the most influential person there.
Absolutely.
There's this one guy who, when he says "Joe boy," everybody follows him. You've got to identify those naysayers, those fierce critics, and carry them along. So these change champions then help to institutionalize the change management process, which is the recreation of culture. Another thing is to reward people who are championing the new culture. So look out for them and reward them. And also, let's sanction those who are not complying. And I've said that what gets people fired, in my experience, is often misalignment with values.
What get people fired is often misalignment with values. All right. So, like David said, you will face challenges. I mean, there will be a lot of opposition here and there, but what will help you is that make sure that you communicate whatever you want to do, or you communicate your culture, identify change champions in your organizations, and use them to integrate the culture in your environment, and make sure you reward people who live or champion your culture, and then punish those who go or who do not align with it. Interesting and insightful conversation with our resource person, David Mills, the head of human resources at Petrosol. I just wish we are going to have another hour so we can continue this conversation, but because of time, we would want to end here. Now, before we go off, I'd like to go back to my guest, David. David is going to tell us a little about his book, and then when he's done, he'll give us his final words, and then I would come in with some few announcements, and we are done. Dave, you are smiling. I didn't tell you I'll let you talk about the book. I have a copy in
Yeah,
my house. In fact,
yeah,
very
yeah,
insightful. Very,
yeah.
very insightful.
Thanks
The,
so
the
much.
six sins of leadership,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. 6 deadly sins of business.
Six deadly sins of businesses. Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Amazing
So
book.
thanks so much for having me. I'm very humbled. I also have a few copies, so people can reach out. You can follow. You can get in touch. I'm more active on LinkedIn. David L.O. Mills. If you search me on LinkedIn, you'll find me. You can reach out if you want a copy. We'll get one for you. But thanks very much. I just want to say that let's keep learning. You see, the learning is a seed of growth. If you want to grow, you've got to learn. So once you're learning, you are growing. Once you're growing, you're becoming better. and you are getting closer to achieving your dreams. So I wish your audience all the best, uh, and see you at the top, like we always say. Thank you.
Sure, we will definitely meet at the top. Right, thank you very much, David, for today. I mean, this has been very interesting, and we are super excited. We are so glad to have you as our resource person, especially on our first anniversary. Thank you so much for coming. I want to say a very big thank you to all our viewers. All right, so Stephanie has a comment here. Stephanie says, I always have something new to learn each week. Many thanks to our organizers. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Joy says, this has been a great conversation. In fact, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I mean, like David said, please, we don't have to stop learning. And that is why I said that HR Digest, we are here to make sure that week in, week out, we are learning new things. We are bringing you people with industry experts to help us understand what is happening as HR people, what we need to do as policymakers, how to find our way around. I mean, a whole lot of things happening, and we need to make sure that we are on top of our game. All right. So Michael says, excellent session as always. Thank you, Michael. Richard says, wonderful. Thank you, Richard. Amma says, great learnings. Thank you, Amma. Keep your comments coming in. Like I said, today is our first anniversary. We want to say a very special thank you to all of you for watching us this period. It's been wonderful having you Sunday after Sunday. We are let me say we are in business because you keep watching. HR Digest is all over because you keep watching. I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you so much. And we know that the coming years will have more insightful and interesting gatherings together. Don't forget, we are already preparing for next year Sedat HR conference. I don't want to say it is happening in Kumasi because Accra people are already fighting me, and we haven't decided on the venue yet. But let's hope and pray that Kumasi wins again or Accra wins. Whoever wins will be there for you. But thank you so much, guys. We are very, very grateful. Next week we'll be coming your way with another interesting conversation, and you don't want to take yourself out of it. Have a great week, enjoy your weekend, and know that you always have to be intentional about creating and maintaining culture at your workplace. You have to define your culture, define your core values, and integrate your mission and your vision to give you purpose. Thank you and enjoy your evening. That's a Sedat HR Digest, and your host today is Patience Crunchy. See you next week and have a good evening.